All right, Dr. Dustin Boston here. I'm here with Erin Ruggeri today. This is the Vital Wire. All right, here we go. This podcast is going to be all about some passionate rants for those of you watching. Exactly what's behind us on the screen. We have officially launched the Ultimate Sports Physical.
Oh, yeah.
So before we jump into that, we want to go into a little more of the mission of why we started to do this, why it's so important, because it's not just something we're trying to sell you. We want you to get the value of why this needs to happen for every single student athlete. So we're going to talk about some of the things. What is the Ultimate Sports Physical? Why is it so important? What are some of the statistics? And how is this going to literally change the game for student athletes in this area and hopefully nationwide, worldwide? We are on a huge mission to make this a very, very big thing. So, Erin, from your perspective too, you have a similar perspective that you're bringing to this. You've brought in technology for the sports physical. But before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about our heart and why we're so passionate on, give us your perspective. What's so passionate for you about something like the sports physical, the Ultimate Sports Physical?
I grew up around athletes. My brother was a football player, a wrestler, a baseball player. I was a dancer. My mom cheered in high school. Just growing up around all kinds of athletes. Obviously, I've danced my whole life, and now I coach at Francis Howell and Lindenwood. So seeing everything that athletes go through, myself going through, I wish that this is something that we would have had whenever I was growing up. And even now, like, the people that I coach, I'm like, okay, you all need this. Like, this is so much better.
I mean, it's just so easy because I love the fact that physicals are needed to play a sport.
Right.
However, it's very quickly become just
checklist.
The obligatory, like, hey, here's your signature. Thanks for coming in. Give me your $20 and you can go play. Or maybe they find you might need glasses, you know?
Right.
And it just, I think there's so much more value we can give the athlete, but also more information that the parents need to know. Because from my perspective, it's like, how can we build a healthier generation sooner?
Yep.
And seeing the student athletes sooner and giving them, okay, here's where we do need to strengthen in certain areas. Here's where you are lacking in this and this. And because at the end of the day, there can be some huge injuries that can be prevented based on the technology of the things we use in this Ultimate Sports Physical.
Yeah.
So why not treat them with respect and treat them like people and not just say, hey, here's your signature, and literally give you a true sports physical.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we have to start protecting our student athletes. I have 3 young kids. They're all going to be athletes on some level. We've been athletes. And we now more than ever in our health, especially after the past few years, it's like everybody's mindset is changing, which is also why we came up with this. So we can be on the front end of like, take care of our student athletes better. Sooner. How do we prevent injuries? How do we baseline concussions or, get a baseline pre-concussion? That way, because some of these injuries, I wouldn't say are inevitable, but they happen. Yeah. Concussions, ACL tears, torn labrums in hip or shoulders, rotator cuffs, ATFL, the ankle injuries.
Sprain, yeah.
And so how about we start taking care of our athletes sooner and evaluating them to give them the best opportunity for injury prevention, but also return to play respectfully, not too soon. It's like, instead of just it's 6 to 8 weeks and then you can go back and we'll see how you feel. It's like, no. It's 6 to 8 weeks. We reevaluate and determine, can you?
Yeah.
Or let's do it at 4 weeks and see, it's like, you know what? Maybe we can get you back sooner. Because protection doesn't always mean like, okay, you're injured. We'd rather keep you out longer. It's like, no, if we can bring you back sooner, that's a whole different mental health story we can get into.
Right.
So let's, let me end my passionate rant of if I'd say this is going to be, if you care about your student athlete, don't hear what I'm not saying, but if we truly care about our student athletes and this is going to be for you, get the information to be on the front end of any sort of injury prevention, any sort of accelerating their performance too, strengthening in all the right ways. So jump in and tell us a little bit about some of the things we've compiled into this Ultimate Sports Physical.
Yeah, so they get a chiropractic evaluation, of course.
Structure and function.
Yep. Then we also do an AMI screening. So that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table. So it's a movement screening. So they're running through different movements that all athletes have to do: planks, side planks, squats, jumping, landing, running. So everything that all athletes do, no matter what kind of athlete. I think that's what's so cool about this test, is that it's not just geared towards like the traditional athlete. Like it's for artistic athletes, it's for swimmers, football
I love
players,
artistic
everything.
athletes. Don't fly past that. Define artistic athletes.
Artistic athletes. So that's whenever I think about like dancers, cheerleaders, even gymnasts, honestly.
Oh yeah. Athletes, yes.
Athletes.
We just categorized them. I think we did that here. Didn't we do that on the podcast?
Yeah.
You just kind of coined it of artistic athletes. And for the AMI, real quick, is we did a podcast with Dr. Trent Nessler, who came up with this technology, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But for those of you that want to dive into this AMI technology, he does a very good job of at least laying the foundation in that podcast.
Yeah, and this whole test is something that, the whole physical really, but I feel like really with the AMI, it's so specific to that athlete that you're not going to get anywhere else that you're going. Like everything that you get as an athlete is so like mass testing, mass physicals, mass
it's a broad,
workout programs.
Blanketed,
which like that's not how it really should be. Like same thing with coming back from injury. You kind of alluded to this, but like what we learn in a textbook is not what's really going to happen every single time, and that's what's happening with schools and universities around here, is that you're like, oh well, you have an ankle sprain, so here's your protocol, and like that's not how it should be. Everyone's different, and that's how this is definitely going to treat them as athletes.
So chiropractic evaluation, structural and functional, that's just that should be a part of the status quo. Not here to sell you chiropractic care. You'll come along, you'll get it, you'll understand why you need it, but it's a part of the evaluation to look at the athlete, the student athlete, or yourself as an entire person. Do the AMI, this is like literally technology that we place on you in certain areas to give measurements in different X, Y, and Z angles, and there's just so much tech that goes into that. We get a whole report. I do a TPI evaluation, which is Titleist Performance Institute, not just because I love golf. Yes, it's a golfing program that's come up by a chiropractor who created TPI. But I do this because biomechanically it gives us so much more, another layer of information to be able to see how is the body moving, where is deficiency that just statically. We've done the dynamic in the AMI. Now let's just get more support to that. A couple more testing. So even though it's a golf named testing platform, it's for any athlete. We can do it for hockey players. We can do it for the artistic athletes and dancers, gymnasts, and we've done it. Soccer players. We just did a soccer player Ultimate Sports Physical, which is just so important as we just bring more value and show you, and also trackable, because when we do it again, we have all kinds of data that we can track, all kinds of different data points. Recovery hallway is something that you all get to experience too as a part of the Ultimate Sports Physical. Recovery is probably one of the most sought after now, and was some of the most underrated. And compression therapy, cryotherapy, infrared sauna, red light, there's so much, and we're going to be expanding some of this too. But we're going to give you guys the opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, it's like you want to perform at this high level, but then you can't do that every single day if you're not recovering, if you're not taking care of yourself, the hallway, and even like nutritionally too. That's a whole other rabbit hole we can go down. We won't start that right now.
You can't be mad at the results you get for the work you didn't put in. And that's not quite how that quote goes, but that's how it sits in my head right now. Like, you cannot complain about the results you didn't get because of only the work you put in. And so the recovery hallway is going to be so good. It's nice to see people starting to come in for more of that as well. If there is any sort of chronic injuries, inflammation issues, torn tendon, ligament issues, labral issues, if necessary, if we need to, we're also going to give people who do the Ultimate Sports Physical and their parents the opportunity for $100 off of our tissue regenerative therapy mapping visit to see, maybe it's a knee and meniscus issue, maybe it's a ankle, maybe it's plantar fasciitis, rotator cuff, whatever it might be. We can do that. This is all things that are going to be on our website that you can look into and you can research about, or just give us a call and we can go over more. But throughout the rest of this podcast, we're going to break down a couple other things, but the Ultimate Sports Physical is just that. It's literally the ultimate evaluation from A to Z, biomechanically, functionally, to give us a multitude of different things to do going forward.
Right. Specifically
training purposes. Jump into that. Like, once we get done with this, what does this give us?
So from these reports, the AMI and the TPI as well, it's going to literally point out what your, not flaws are, but kind of weaknesses as an athlete. We all have them. It also points out your strengths as well, but those weaknesses, those flaws we see in your movement patterns are really going to guide where you need to go for training. Like, you don't need to be going and squatting and maxing out every day. You need to be working on those accessory muscles that are clearly weak, because in your side plank, you're dipping and turning, and I can see that, especially with, I think, like, biggest thing that, like, I always focus on is, like, the valgus at the knee. So whenever we talk about that, like, the curving in, whenever people jump, they bow in their knee, and that's not a good thing for the structure of the knee, especially the structure of the knee, hip, ankle, pelvis. All of it is connected. You always hear that. But it's so real in this test. And so that's really going to guide where you need to be going for your training, specifically for you. Again, it's not a mass report, and especially what you can supplement with outside of your training programs.
Because in the whole reason, especially for the AMI things too, is and we talked about this on that podcast, was Dr. Trent Nessler did a lot of his research. He kind of plugged in, man, there's a lot of ACL injuries going on. So what we know and what this gives us is because of that valgus in the knee and how that Q angle is, and these are all things that we'll put links to, but you're more susceptible to something like an ACL injury. So being able to have the technology to measure these ranges and start to evaluate, it gives us an efficiency score through this entire Ultimate Sports Physical. We have a scoring system that shows us the efficiency of how the body works. Because if we can mitigate, how many people would want to make sure that they give their athlete the best opportunity to not have an ACL tear, to not have a hip labral tear, to not have a shoulder rotator cuff or shoulder labral tear, to not have ankle injuries, rolled ankles, ATFL issues, broken ankles, stress fractures in the tibia because of how you're sending those forces through the legs.
And what if we told you that females are more apt to all of that? Like, it's
right.
crazy.
By an asinine amount.
Just like hormonally.
30%.
There's so many things like hormones, just eating patterns in females are usually different, bone density. That's a whole other thing we can go down to female athletes, but.
So, and the reason we wrap this back into the chiropractic evaluation is it's like, okay, say we just did the AMI. And they're like, man, you're more susceptible to this, this, and this. Here's how it transitions through the knee. Here's how it goes up into the hip. And then immediately it's like, well, in the hip, there's two sides of the hip. And then what's above that's the lumbar spine, low back issues, low back pain. One of the top complained about things, not only in people in the workplace, but also athletes. And so it's the dynamicness of the entire evaluation. This is why the chiropractic evaluation too is a part of it, because now literally structurally we can see what that looks like. So even if we did the tech first, now we have the structure and we just compile more and more value, because now, depending on what we see, we can create a specific training program going forward. Like, here's how efficient you are. Here's what you're most susceptible to. Do you want to fix it? Yeah. Okay. Would you like us to put a complete and very specific to you training or training program together for you based on what we know? Yes, please do that. Which is why then we collaborate with somebody like Stephen Beavis at Beavis Sports Performance. That's why we have you here. That's why I can't do it all by myself, but we all have so much. We have so much greater value and specificity because we all look at things differently. I can do what I do best on the doctor's side, structural neurological correction. Stephen can do his thing. Okay, are we trying to put on mass? Are we trying to put on lean mass? Are we trying to, how are we trying to put on weight or cut? And then you can collaborate with both of us together. We all three can collaborate together from the movement side, the training side, the preparation, the before even on the field. If we can get into the whole taping thing, but also the recovery side. There's just, I geek out about this. I could ramble on about this over and over, but it's just hopefully you're starting to see why the Ultimate Sports Physical is so important, and you definitely need to look at getting it done, or at least asking questions for how, any questions that you have for us for what we can answer for you specifically.
Yeah, like in my intro podcast, if you will,
we
literally said like student athletes deserve an army, and that's literally what we're building is that army. So like, why not just take advantage of it?
So the other thing is, and going back on a rant too, is it's like, okay, say we don't do this. Like, injuries are going to happen.
Correct.
Like, we're not saying you do this, you're never going to be injured.
Those contact injuries are still going to happen. Yeah.
Right. And so, but let's look at this at more of a mission-based status for me. Is the mental health side of things for student athletes is so huge.
Yep.
It's no longer ignorable. It's very, very forefront. When kids are overdosing, when kids are being put on so much Prozac and Wellbutrin, and they're on all these antipsychotic antidepressant medications, and they're dealing with school, it's a culture shock. They go from even junior high to high school is a big deal, and then high school to college, and it's like they think they want to go D1, they want they want to go to Alabama, they want to go to Notre Dame, and it's like, holy cow, now I'm 6 hours away from family, and I'm literally competing for my life, and it's just like, now I'm injured.
Yeah.
I'm in training camp as a freshman, have the opportunity to play. Yeah, I know.
So real.
And now, potentially you're out for a long period of time, or you're redshirted. How does the mental health game play to that?
Yeah.
And how could we have potentially prevented that whole injury? Because you tell an athlete you have to sit, it doesn't just like, oh man, I bet he's going to be bummed. I think we need to pay more attention to how bummed.
Yeah.
Like, mentally, that's depressing. It's like the whole reason they gave up everything that they're comfortable with, which I think is important, but they potentially left their family. They took on so much. Maybe they took on debt. Whatever it is because they want to do what they love to do, and now it's taken away.
Yeah, you're taking away their whole routine.
Anxiety,
like they don't know anything else.
Anxiety, depression. There's just so much that happens there. That's why something like this is so, if you have any student athletes that are going off to college, I don't care where, an hour away, 16 hours away.
Yeah, 45 minutes, it doesn't matter.
Start getting this done now before these kids even get into high school, because if we can prevent it at all costs, and the thing is we can't rewind. It's like, okay, go to college without it, and now let's go back to your freshman year of high school and do it, and then go to college again. Like, we don't have that opportunity. So it's what's the alternative if you don't? Would you have wished you would have done it if something does happen? That's really the biggest thing for me, because the mental health statistics, 30% of college athletes experience some sort of mental health issue, and only like 10% of it maybe is ever reported.
Yeah.
See that all the time, which then goes into the Pure Athlete, and something that we're creating as well for those of you that are going to see the Pure Athlete brand and some of the oh, look at that. That was all unintentional. I thought that was a VP one. This is going to, segue into that for the resources like the Ultimate Sports Physical, like a community to talk about maybe the mental health game and start to bring people together, build the army in not a competitive way, but to have kids at USF that are also communicating with kids from Stanford, and to have all of these resources. We're literally starting to put this as a nationwide thing, and we're starting here.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just excited to see how fast this really starts to pick up. We've waited a long time. It seems like a long time. We've been not dragging our feet, but I think we've been trying to be more perfect than just getting it done.
Yeah.
And now it got to the point where we looked at each other, and I'm like, Erin, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to get the Ultimate Sports Physical up and going now. It's like, okay, done. And here we are. And we've already done 2 or 3 of them at this point. It's been less than a week that we've even really said anything, and now it's full tilt. So for those of you that want to ask questions or just want to take advantage of the Ultimate Sports Physical, there's going to be links. There's, sign up, get on the wait list. We have a couple more already booked. We have it lined out. It's a 2-day process.
Yeah.
Has to be.
It has to be.
How long the evaluation takes?
So like the AMI is about 15 minutes. TPI, I would say that was 10-ish minutes, whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe 30.
The evaluation, and we're willing to get better with that, but it
Yeah.
takes as long as it takes. I mean, some of those holds are a minute, some of them are 90 seconds, you know,
Yeah.
so, but if we can get the entire thing done in under an hour, there's just so much value in that for you. We're going to bring you back and go over a whole list and a whole report. I mean, this right here is a part of what it spits out among so many other things, and we'll sit you down and go over that with you, your entire findings and our best recommendations going forward of like, here's your options going forward. You can definitely go, thanks, got my physical, awesome, love this, appreciate it, and you can walk out the door. That's fine. However, we do have next steps for those of you that want them, with training, with prevention, with recovery, with lifestyle. Options and opportunities, from chiropractic care to weightlifting to diet, nutrition, metabolic. I didn't even touch on that yet. You know, we're going to give an opportunity for a discounted metabolic paneling, which is so important, especially, I mean, men and women both, but even, you know, the females, as you know, those high schoolers, junior high and high schoolers, as their body's changing, they're becoming young women.
Important. It's
just so important. There's this is something I've said a lot of recently, and we've all kind of jumped on board with this. It's time to be done doing anything nonsensically. Why just supplement for the case of supplementing? Oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. It's like, that's a healthy thing to do. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Do you know how much vitamin C your body needs? Well, it says here, like the IUs, and I need 2,000. It's like, no. How much do you need? How much vitamin D do you need? And how do those interact with other electrolytes? Do we need to up it beyond the status quo, the FDA, you know, no.
The lab standard.
Yeah. And there's, you know, high glycemic indexes, and there's A1Cs. It's like, well, what's into play? Oh, I'm pre-diabetic. Or your blood work is showing that's creating you to look like you're pre-diabetic. You might not be pre-diabetic at all.
Yeah.
It's just your A1C's high because of this, and this. 5 pages of metabolic evaluation stuff that we do during this. It's just another thing. We've had, 6 people in the past week start or take the next step. It's just giving you more opportunity for these resources. Is huge.
I think something else I want to touch on, which also might be a rant, but not only is it for athletes, but like those people post-athletes, like you don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
And like that is such a real thing that no one really talks about either. Is like, okay, I competed my entire life. Every single night I was at dance, and every weekend I was in a competition, and then you graduate and it's like, wait, what? And like having all of this information would have helped me know, like, okay, well, my body likes this better, and that's what I need to be focusing on. So not only are we saying like, okay, like, yes, it is the ultimate physical for athletes, but even if you're not an athlete right now, this is still for you.
Yeah. You remember who my ideal clientele is? Put you on the spot. You remember what I tell people? Like if I had to tell you who my ideal clientele was, do you remember?
No.
Student athletes and their parents trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Right? So you bring up a good point, because it's not like, okay, well, I guess I don't need this anymore. Cool. I've had somebody ask, like, can you do this evaluation on me? Like, they're a golfer. It's like, how many of us golf, softball, co-ed softball, kayaking, hiking.
Pickleball is so big right now.
Pickleball, absolutely. Tennis. And it's just like, well, I'm getting older. It's like, well, why is the 72-year-old still playing tennis at a higher level than you, and you're 52?
Right.
And it's like, okay, so what if those parents trying to keep up? You can absolutely get this evaluation done too. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
How long do you want to play golf for and play golf well? It's not just about playing. It's like anybody can go out there and play, and they could have a terrible, shitty time and upset with how they're playing because they literally can't move, or it hurts, or they don't have the range of motion. It's like, well, let's get this done now. And I don't care if you're 22, I don't care if you're 82. We can do this on you. And it's a non-judgment thing. It's like, oh, well, we got to get you to 100%. It's like, no. Everybody here is a person. So let's take where you're at, take your book, and write a chapter in your book instead of taking a chapter or an entire book of somebody else's and trying to place it into yours. Get the evaluation done, and is the progress worth it? If you got to play better golf for 10 more years versus stopping now, would you take it?
Right.
Get the evaluation.
Play golf
done.
with your kids. Like, how about that?
Yeah.
You know?
So true. Talk about value. It's like, go to travel. Let's go to Hilton Head and play 3 different courses out there, or let's go play Pebble Beach, and it's like and play it well. And even if you shoot 100, you were able to play well.
Right.
And go just Go in the backyard and kick the soccer ball with your
Right.
kids.
Right. Like, do you want to teach them how to play soccer, or do you want someone else to?
Yeah, or do you want to watch?
Yeah.
Watch somebody else enjoy kicking
No one wants
the
to
ball.
be on the sidelines.
So just super excited that we have collaborated and then bringing Steven in on this
Yes.
too. And there's more to come on this. Like, this is just the beginning. But for those of you that want to take action, we're going to put a link up. Get on the wait list. We will reach out to you. We might even just build a calendar where we can do this even on off hours, so we can respect your time, give you our full attention.
Yeah.
But get on the list. Give us a call. We will get you set up. All your student athletes are going to need physicals.
Yeah.
I don't agree with these 2-year freaking physicals. I don't. This should be every year. We do a follow-up on this as well. But get on the list. Let's make that happen. And we will get you all the information you need going forward and set you up with everything beyond that as well. It's time to take care of student athletes.
Yeah.
It's time to take care of them better. And we're here to do that. So hope you all have enjoyed. There's going to be more on this. Super excited. Hope everybody has a great week. See ya.